Are we unaware of our own creative energy? If yes, does it make any difference to our lives, one way or the other? Spandakarikas, the 9th century philosophical gem from the tradition of Kashmir Shaivism, asserts that we become the best version of ourselves only when aligned with this energy. Let us dive deep into this text. Written by the great Shaivite philosopher and teacher Vasugupta in the 9th century AD, and published by his disciple Kallata, this text is all about recognizing the pulsating creative energy, which is constantly at work both within and outside us. This energy is called Spanda. This Sanskrit word literally means throb. It connotes the dynamic aspect of the divine. It is termed as the divine creative pulsation. According to Spandakarikas, self is not simply a witnessing consciousness, but is characterized by the power of cognition and activity, which is the ability of knowing and doing. The text asserts that only that person, who is in communion with this active self, can rise to the status of his highest being. He becomes free of all suffering, born of time. He acts with absolute freedom, and realizes the objects of his contemplation. Once published, Spandakarikas attracted commentary from several great scholars and philosophers from Kashmir Shaivism over the centuries. This video is based on the commentary of the 11th century philosopher Kshemaraja. He categorized this text into 4 sections. The first section is about realizing Spanda within. The second section is about recognizing Spanda in the outer world. And the third and fourth sections offer a glimpse of the power of an awakened person, following this teaching. Today, we will explore section 1, consisting of 25 verses. The first verse describes the dynamic aspect of self as Spanda Shakti, which is the collective whole of all divine energies, expressed as manifestation and dissolution. This Shakti, or the Spanda principle, is the essential nature of Shiva, the supreme consciousness, as well as the empirical individual, you and me. This Shakti is always in action, but its power never gets depleted. However, no activity emanating from the Spanda principle can conceal the nature of Shiva, who is a compact mass of consciousness and bliss. It is like the reflection of a city scene in the mirror has no impact on the mirror itself. This is true for both the macrocosmic and microcosmic levels of existence. That means self of a person remains untouched by whatever manifests within and outside her in the form of thoughts, emotions, objects, etc. The text says, while Spanda is the dynamic energy of Shiva, it is also the underlying basis of the psychological subject, the sense of I, in us. This I always remains the subject, or the experiencer in waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. It can never be reduced to an object. Now, let us understand the working of the Spanda principle in our day-to-day activities. We believe our senses function according to our will or desire. However, verses 6 to 8 in this section insist that we derive the power from Spanda to move our senses towards their objects. But we are unaware of the presence of this principle within us because of the perturbation caused by thoughts and experiences tied to the limited ego. So, we have to go beyond the limited ego and identify ourselves with Spanda Shakti, the essential nature of Shiva. Verses 14, 15, and 16 offer help in this regard. It is said, the Spanda principle has 2 aspects to it. It expresses itself as the subject, or the door, and the object, or the deed. While the deed is subject to decay and change, the door remains changeless, imperishable. For, the sense of I can never cease to be, even while experiencing void or emptiness. When there is a non-perception of objects, as in deep meditation, the I-ness remains just the abode of omniscience. So, what is most important? Living in this changeless I consciousness is all that is required. But that should be easier said than done. That's why all these teachings exist. With their help, each of us can progress from being totally unenlightened to a partially awakened to a fully enlightened person. We can also identify the stage we are in at present. Verses 17 to 25 describe the characteristics of the people in these three stages and reveal the means for attaining the highest. The fully enlightened is established in the knowledge of self, or I consciousness, during all the three states: waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. The partially awakened ones have this knowledge only at the beginning and end of each state. For the fully enlightened, knowledge and objects of knowledge appear as expressions of Spanda principle in waking and dreaming states, and in deep sleep, this principle shows up as sheer consciousness. The unenlightened consider particular manifestations of the Spanda principle, expressed as thoughts, objects, or any other form, as entirely separate from consciousness. Hence, they go through the pain and pleasure arising from such expressions. However, the fully enlightened perceive such manifestations as part of the generic Spanda principle and remain undisturbed. For the unenlightened and partially enlightened, this section offers powerful techniques to achieve full enlightenment. Verse 21 assures that if a person is always on the alert and is conscious of the Spanda principle, she attains her essential state even in the waking condition in a short time. Kshemaraja in his commentary asserts that the mind of those who have constant awareness of the divine is transformed by the mysterious alchemic force present within and becomes fully enlightened and liberated while living. Scholar Utpalabhatta recommends a practice with this affirmation to achieve constant awareness of the divine. I am only pure consciousness. This world is only a glorious manifestation of myself. How fully enlightened and partially enlightened behave in different situations. For example, when exasperated or overjoyed, or is in impasse, reflecting on what to do, or is running for life, the fully enlightened quickly becomes introverted and establishes himself in the Spanda principle, which leads him to an appropriate response. The partially enlightened should seize these psychological moments and remember the Spanda principle underlying such situations. The final three verses describe the state of the enlightened and the unenlightened during meditation. Being firmly established in the Spanda principle, the fully awakened just observe, as the upward-moving prana and downward-moving apana merge in the Sushumna Nadi, rise above the head, and merge with the universal consciousness. However, the partially enlightened are stupefied by such wonderful experiences. So, we know where we stand on this journey if we analyze our experiences. Whatever is the position below the highest state, we should try to remain in I consciousness as much as possible. Relatively new meditators can take help from a meditation known as Nimilana Samadhi. The steps are given in the description below. With this part comes to an end. In the next part, we will explore how to perceive and align with Spanda in the external world, bridging inner realization with outer expression. Subscribe and stay connected. Thank you.